Alrighty, Swimming Upstream episode 58. The first, I would say this is the first podcast that will drop under the new era of Fish on First with the new website. But we are here as always. My name is Kevin Barral, your host. I'm here with my good friend and co-host, the creator of Swimming Upstream, the founder, if you want to say, Alex Carver. Alex, we actually have a lot to talk about, despite no, limited movement in the major league level. There are a lot of minor league stuff we have to go through.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Mostly related to international stuff, right? Got some big news today on Andrew, which we'll go through that. Also, just coming off of learning a little bit more about these prospects that the Marlins got in the this signing class. So we'll talk about those as well. And then maybe just a little bit of a primer. I mean, we're still a couple weeks away from minor leaguers reporting out to Jupiter, but maybe just a little bit of a primer today on what we're looking forward towards, in 2024 for a Marlins system that is, still on the upswing. But you can see with recent moves made and with this new influx of talent that's coming and these higher priced international free agents, starting there is a good place to start when you're talking about rebuilding a system. So I'm excited for today's show, man. It's good to be with you as always.
Yep. So as always, like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give us a 5-star review. If you're listening to on any platform, audio platform, and I may as well shout it out here because may as well. But Fish on First, new little rebrand, as you could see. Well, not little, huge rebrand, completely different site. The minor league coverage that we're going to have on here is really going to be some of the best we will ever have. If you kind of go off of what you see on sites like Twins Daily, that's kind of what we'll be doing over there. We partnered with the same people that made Twins Daily, so we're extremely excited to get into this new journey with this new site. So aside from that, I think let's get going, Alex. So let's go with the big news. Andrew Salas, brother of Jose Salas and Ethan Salas, is expected to sign for a bonus of up to almost $4 million. We're thinking between what kind of Yeedy got around that area, maybe a little more than what Jose Salas got, but if you guys remember, Miami did sign Jose Salas, the first of the three brothers. Ethan Salas went over to the San Diego Padres for about $5 million. And now Andrew Salas, which many say this could be the best out of the three, is coming over to Miami possibly next year for about $4 million. Alex, this is a guy we're very high on. And you look at the system right now, this may be the Marlins' top prospect come 2025.
Yeah, for sure. I've been talking to those connected to the Salases since Jose was here. Of course, he left in the Arias trade. So, man, just looking at what this kid is already doing at 15 years old and how polished that he already is. You can see the videos you posted in your article. I posted some on Twitter today. Man, this kid just looks so polished at such a young age. Another switch hitter like Jose, also a switch hitter. Obviously, he's going to get less than Ethan because of positional flexibility. Obviously, Ethan plays a very, very premium position at catcher. So he's obviously going to go for a bit more money. But, man, $4 million is what's being reported. Around $4 million, I think is what the report was. Man, that's big money. And he will be the highest priced international free agent that the Marlins will have signed if he does go for that much money, as the report says, since Victor Mesa. So this is really, really big money. And I think this kid deserves it. Really, really high on the tools, man. It's a quiet approach. It's a quiet swing. He's got really, really good levers in the field. I was slightly surprised to hear that they already did move him off of shortstop and he's now playing third base. But I also kind of thought that about Jose, that Jose isn't really a shortstop either, or isn't a long-term shortstop either, and probably is more of a fit for third base. So it's kind of probably in the pipeline that they're more built for third base, which is fine. You could still get a very, very high-quality bat with really good skills in the field, I think, at third base. His arm velocities are very, very good. He could throw all the way across the diamond. He's shown it before. We posted this video today, just him like flicking the glove around and stuff. It just looks really, really cool, man. This guy, I am very, very high on. His family is very high on him as well. International scouts are very high on this kid. And this guy's going to be, I think, a very, very, very good prospect. And like you said, very much a fit for the potential top spot in the Marlins system when he is signed next year. Obviously, that comes with the fact that we may not see him for a while, maybe until 2028, 2029. But, man, when you're talking about building for the long-term future, this is a piece that you really want. And I think the Marlins are going to be happy with this one when they get him.
Is that him at shortstop? That may be him at shortstop, right?
Yeah, so he's number 1 in this video. Number 5 is another guy, Emil.
Okay.
So yeah, he's number 1 in this video. This is him right here on your screen.
That's
So yeah,
shortstop
he was
now.
playing shortstop and second, I think, in this video, and then he did some hitting as well. But yeah, this is him hitting right here. So yeah, obviously still some room to grow into the frame, but I think his frame is already pretty good at age 15. This guy is going to be, I think, a very, very star-studded prospect for the Marlins if and when they do sign him, as the report that we read today is leaning towards. And we saw him last year, even wearing a Marlins shirt last year in those pictures that you posted in your article. So it just speaks to the fact that, man, this is how early these guys commit to a team. And it seems like Andrew is committed to Miami, which is very good news today. I don't think this is getting the attention that it should. I think this should be higher heralded news than it is, because this is a very, very big get for the Marlins if and when they do sign him.
I feel like it'll be bigger news, especially once we see, because everyone looks at that for the most part. That's, the biggest list that everyone looks at. It's going to be the MLB pipeline list. And you see Andrew Salas very, very close to the top. This will be probably the highest ranked prospect the Marlins will have in terms of that specific list. I mean, to be fair, that's the one I look at. And as much as we don't agree usually with some of the top prospects lists that they make, their international one usually is pretty good. So yeah, and the one thing that does stand out, and I was looking, I think it was at Perfect Game, because they had a profile for him. It said 6'1". He does not look 6'1". He looks at least a little bit more than that, maybe 6'2", I want to say. Maybe 6'3", but it's a quick swing, quick move. He has a good arm. I mean, this, and as much as we want to keep Noble Meyer at the number 1 spot, and that's something we're going to have to go through, maybe not this year, but next year, because, specifically now with the arrival of Kova, which we'll get into in a bit, that's definitely going to be one of the biggest things we're going to be talking about when we have to make that new top 30 list. But Alex, Adrian Lorenzo is gone. He's a great friend of the show, great friend of ours. He always supported what we do, but I mean, let's call it. We have to be clear about it. I mean, they went after quantity over quality, and we'll get into the class in a bit. But the signing of Kova and now the signing of someone like Andrew Salas, who may as well be the number 1 international prospect come 2025. I mean, you got to look at it how it is. They're going for quality. And that's one of the things that Peter Bendix mentioned in many, many pressers, many scrums during winter meetings, in his initial opening statements, that the one thing he is going to prioritize is the international market and ensure that he will hit on big prospects and that they won't miss. Now, to Lorenzo's credit, he did get some pretty good prospects for the most part. Jancory De La Cruz is off to a pretty good start. You also have Marco Vargas, who at the end of the day was used in a trade to get a big leaguer. Despite how it turned out, he was used in a trade to get it. And that's been the case for someone like Lorenzo's classes. And, on top of that, he has to fill out 2 DSL teams. So that's the other thing too. But man, what does it say now about this new front office? Because at the moment, it's Azo Campo who's running this. He is, I guess you could say, the interim. He took over for Lorenzo at the moment, and from what we know, they're not going to be doing any sort of interviews for that position to replace Lorenzo. So what do you take away from this new regime that's kind of entering for Miami?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, just based off of what we just talked about on how early on these deals get done, usually like sometimes years in advance, like we're talking about 2025 right now, and it's January of 2024. So very likely that Lorenzo still had some fingerprints on deals that got done. But like you were saying, I think you see the switch in mindset from what Lorenzo did a few years ago, where he drafted like over 60 guys, right? Or not drafted, selected. It's not a draft, it's a selection process. You select and sign over 60 guys. Yeah. And his explanation then was like, we're just going after guys and seeing which ones we hit on, right? Which is not a bad strategy to have, especially when you're opening up a new academy. You have room for 2 teams now. You can field more guys. You can get better looks at more guys with the new resources that you have. So it definitely wasn't a bad strategy at all. But what you're seeing here is just the importance that they're placing on getting talent as early as possible, right? Whether that's through the draft or through the international signing process. That's the earliest you can get talent, because these guys sign at 16, right? So I really think you're seeing a huge emphasis placed on the Marlins coming by developed talent as much as it can be developed at that early of an age as quickly as possible, and getting these guys that are a little bit more polished, a little bit more expensive, but also a lot more polished than, guys like Yaffer Solano. No knock on Yaffer Solano, but that was their top signing, and it was not really a very lucrative deal, and that was their highest price guy a few years ago. So what you're seeing is they're spending a little bit more money to save more money later on what they hope will be very established talent, which is definitely a really good strategy for a team like the Marlins to present. So I like this slight shift in approach to international signing periods. We saw it with Kova. We're going to see it even more apparently with Andrew Salas. And I think it's a great direction for the Marlins to go when it comes to getting talent as early as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, obviously it's still too early to tell, but not just moving away a little bit from the international side of things. You brought in a new a new director of amateur scouting, so let's see how that goes. I mean, you look at Seattle the past couple of years; they've hit on most of their picks, and George Kirby was one of them. Emerson Hancock. I mean, man, Bryce Miller. They've hit. So that's one thing to say. And obviously, I just mentioned all pitchers, but position player wise as well, they're getting their Kyle Lewis. I know was kind of a weird situation there. He won Rookie of the Year in that 2020 shortened year, but we don't have to talk about Frankie Pilieri. You could just go on the official show and check out everything our good friend Eli Sussman said about him. But anyways, let's start talking about this class. Certainly a smaller one, only 21 guys, I believe, is the exact number. It's highlighted by Luis Cova. I have the full list over here if I find it. Here we go. Highlighted by Luis Cova, and then you have Jose Castro, who's another name that we've heard very good things on. Alex, talk to us about Luis Cova.
Yeah, so this guy looks really polished as well at a very young age. It's another guy that we talk about that is just showing so much at such a young age. Looks like he can play all three outfield spots. It's pretty damn good speed. And the swing is quiet, and it's built for what I think will be future power for this kid. Really like it, man. I really think this guy's going to be pretty good pretty quickly just based off of how advanced he is at not even age 17 yet. So this guy has earned the money I think that he got. I like the build too. I think he's pretty sizable for an age 17 kid with still room to grow. You see a little bit of bulk in the upper half. So I definitely think it's a swing and a personality profile and a skill set that is built for all three outfield positions, hopefully sticking in center field. Definitely think he can do it. And then this swing, man, I think is built for some big things in the terms of power. Concerns for this young man, because I think it's a power first profile. Just limiting swing and miss, just kind of what you want to see from early on. I really do think that huge uppercut swing that he has is built for a lot of power. So I'm going to be looking at how he, implements a little bit more bat speed, and kind of limits the times where he chases outside of the zone. I really do think it's a power first approach. It's a power first looking approach from everything that we can see. Little bit of a shorter stride through the zone though, from what you're seeing at these full speed pitches. Doesn't really have like the huge high leg kick or anything. So timing wise, it looks pretty good. I'm just hoping to see that he can stay patient at the plate, and continue to hit to all fields and not just go pull, because it does seem like there's a little bit of pull as well. So the only concerns I have, and of course these can of course be developed out of a 17-year-old kid, hitting to all fields, limiting swing and miss, and letting the power come to you is kind of the things that I think he needs to learn. But I think this is a pretty exciting prospect for the Marlins to have in their system. We'll see what he does this year. Likely starting in the DSL. We'll see, probably coming stateside next year, I would guess. I don't have that officially or anything. Just guessing that, they'll take it easy with a 17-year-old kid, start him out back home, and then bring him over, or not back home, but start him out in the DR, and then bring him over. He's from Venezuela, right? And then bring him back over here, or bring him over here stateside probably in 2025. Those are kind of what the things I'm looking at are for Mr. Cova, but I really do like the personality profile and the player profile that this guy has. I think it's money well spent here, and I think that the Marlins are going to be happy with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I love the profile, especially, I mean, you look at him, it's like such a long type of guy, but I mean, he has power and maybe a little bit more of a laid back approach. As you mentioned, he doesn't do too much with the swing, but it gets power and yeah, maybe a little pull, but that's something they could develop, in this organization as a whole has tried to really implement more of a, opposite field hitting. We see it at the major league level with Sanchez and DLC, and I'll even say Nassim and he's no longer with the organization, but he was a guy who saw a lot of success with opposite field hits. So certainly something there to keep an eye out on. But let's talk about just the list as a whole. Real quick, we look at, something that Lorenzo really touched on, Alex, was really, let's dive into different markets. And that's not something we're seeing here. You see a lot of Dominican Republic, you see some Venezuela, and only one spot from Mexico. He wanted to dive into markets like Curacao, Cuba, Colombia, the Bahamas, usually one that they dive into pretty decent, pretty well. They didn't do it this year. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, because we look at Twitter, and I follow Cuban baseball decently well. And that's one thing that many are saying. Why didn't Miami dive into more Cuban prospects when it felt like this was a year where that was a market to really try to hit on? But again, these are deals that are done a very long time ago. Kova, I believe, was done since about, I want to say, late 2021, middle 2022. So it's definitely been a while since Kova was signed. So Miami has had time to kind of dive in deeper into other markets.
Yeah, I think surprising. Surprising in the fact that not that anybody wasn't signed, but just surprising in the fact that they did want to make that a point of emphasis, according to Adrian. He wanted to go to places like Curacao, Honduras, more out of Cuba, stuff like that. And you see most of, if not all of the Marlins signings, with the exception of the ones that they made from Mexico, are from those big three countries, right? So, I mean, obviously, a lot of talent hails out of those countries. They're baseball factories. Like, that's where a lot of talent hails from nowadays in baseball. So it's understandable in a smaller class. But I was a little bit surprised. I mean, they've drafted Bahamian prospects. I keep saying drafted. They've selected Bahamian prospects most years that Lorenzo was here, or even before Lorenzo when Seguinal was here. They've derived talent from places like Bahamas. They've gone into Honduras and gotten players from there as well a little bit. They started to do it. And then this year they kind of didn't do it at all. So it was a little bit surprising to see that none of the pool was spent there on those guys. I do know that they still have a little bit of pool left, I'm pretty sure, through the rest of the signing period.
Like about $1 million-ish left.
Yeah, they still have a little bit left to maybe get some smaller deals done and maybe go into those markets. But I was a little bit surprised to see that that wasn't really done here as of yet. This was just a lot out of those more well-known baseball countries, which is fine, like I said. But when they said they wanted to make that a point, we were kind of looking for it, and we didn't really see it here. So I was a little surprised. But like I said, in a smaller class, maybe it's to be expected a little bit. And I do think the talent that they got is good. Not only Kova, but we could talk about other guys as well. I like Robledo, Gutierrez, like a couple of the other guys that they got as well. I think are showing pretty well, or have shown well so far in their reports and the videos that we've seen and stuff like that. So I think that there's definitely talent here. Obviously Kova, but then after Kova, we can get into that a little bit, and maybe some other guys that have.
Yeah.
We've liked what we've seen on the initial stuff that we've seen from them. Obviously, we don't know everything. We're just going based off of reports and videos. But I do think that there is some good baseline talent here outside of Kova as well. They didn't go into the smaller markets, but that's okay. I definitely think it should be something that they should definitely consider in future years, though, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to just time. Something we'll have to definitely keep an eye on is that 2025 class, because usually the Marlins have, a decent amount of money to spend on these prospects. And now you're going to get about almost $4 million wiped away with Salas. You really got to think about what markets you want to dive in. It seems like the DR is the one that they're really hitting on, with a little bit of Mexico, which I don't think they've signed a Mexican prospect in a pretty long time. I want to say so. Nice to see them dive into that market. But I know Lorenzo had mentioned Curacao once. He mentioned Cuba, Colombia. Those are spots they just didn't go after. And you look at other teams' signing classes, and there's some pretty good players that have signed out of there, and actually for a decent chunk of money. So it shows that they're not the only teams, organizations going after these players. There's definitely more. But let's talk about one of the other players that signed for the second most amount of money, and that is Jose Castro. He is the only other player, from what I'm told, that could possibly stick at center. So, and one of the things that really does stand out about Castro is just kind of how much change or movement he's made in his swing. He started with his front leg a little bit inside, and I'll probably have to find video about pictures about this, because I know I had them, but with sight change and all, I think I may have gotten rid of it. But and then you look at the video, and you go a little deeper into it, and I'll find the video when you're talking here. But he makes the adjustment where he sticks that front leg out a little more, so he has less movement in the swing. He seems like more of a power guy as well, kind of like Kova. So pretty similar builds there, but certainly a guy who we should keep an eye out on. What are your thoughts a little bit on Castro here?
Yeah, 6'3", 180 already. So huge power guy. I think this is definitely going to be a power first guy. I do like the points that you made about him quieting down his swing. What I would say overall is that he's a little bit higher with the elbows up in the air a little bit, with the back kind of out in front a little bit more than he used to be. And then obviously a wider stance to kind of quiet down what he's doing with the lower half, right? So already making some adjustments that can maybe lead to what you would hope would be, for any power guy, you always worry about strikeouts, right? You always worry about chase. So with him already quieting down the levers from where he was previously in his very, very young baseball career, I think that is very, very encouraging for a guy like this. So huge lower half. You can see it here. He's like definitely a lot of legs, right? Probably definitely derives power from that big lower half. And in quieting down the swing, I think that's going to do him very, very well. Again, here, same with Kovitz. I think it's a lot of pull. But that can be coached too. This guy's 17 years old. You want to see him to go to more fields, get a little bit more out over the plate with the bat, and not just target pitches on the inside, try to get those pitches on the outside as well, because pitchers will exploit that at the next level. So again, quieter, kind of like you see here, kind of elbows down, but then more up as the ball is approaching. So obviously trying to get into both that lower half and upper half with the levers. So it looks good, man. I liked the adjustments that you pointed out, including these right here with
that's the one. That's the picture I got there.
Yep. Yeah, the front leg out a little bit more. Timing trigger a lot smaller than it was in older videos of this guy. I just think there needs to be a little bit more consistency here too, because what you can see in some of these videos is that he's setting up a little bit differently from time to time. Sometimes the front leg's out in front, sometimes it's a little bit more back. So it's just going to be about finding what works for this guy consistently. And of course, that's going to take time. But again, this guy's got all the time in the world. So really just consistency, quieting down the swing, going to more fields. And we'll see what this guy can do in sticking, probably I would say be a corner guy long term. I know right now they're trying him out at all three spots, but I would think from the personality profile and player profile that he has, and the more body that he's going to grow into as an already pretty damn big kid, I would say this guy's probably better fit for a corner, but we'll see what he can do. Highly athletic guy, huge build already. So really impressed with the physical nature of this guy already. And then, man, that really physical, violent swing is can be beautiful, but you worry about the Ks, right? So just got to try to quiet it down as much as possible, get consistent with the approach, and we'll see what he can do. But it looks good, man.
Yeah, I mean, and just for reference, he signed for the second most amount at 450K. So certainly Miami was high on this type of a prospect. Let's keep going real quick. Last position player we'll really touch on here is Gregory Arias, who was, I think, only one of two players listed at shortstop. Nope, he's the only player listed at shortstop. And what we have understood is that this guy is going to get every possible shot to play shortstop and stick there. So I will look for his video while you talk here. But certainly, he's I think he's just 6 feet tall. He's on the smaller side of things. And, I may as well just pull it up here. And he's also from the Dominican Republic. So what else stands about Arias and the fact that he's the only player that is also listed as a shortstop, which I know last signing period, we looked at it and there were a lot of players listed at shortstop, and that's usually bound to happen. Most of these guys start there, and then as they go and develop, they change. And this may be the case with Arias, as it could be with any of these guys. But it seems like if they're listing him, that they definitely feel a little more confident he's going to get every chances from what we have been told.
Yeah, switch hitter as well, right? So you like that, but more of like that quick twitch kind of player, right? So kind of related to like a guy like maybe Jazz or something like that. You know what I mean? Before the power came for Jazz, this guy as well, I think is kind of fits into that same mold of a guy that they think could be that quick twitch, like 4 out of 5 tool guy with decent speed. Likely they would like for him to stick at shortstop. They said they're going to give him every opportunity. I would expect him to be there for one of the 2 DSL teams this coming year on a daily basis. So definitely like to hear that they think he can stick at shortstop, because like you said, a lot of players that come out as this young of an age, they either start at shortstop or center field. It's kind of like the main 2 places that they start if they're a position player, and then they move around. You saw it with Andrew Salas. They already moved him off of shortstop and to third base before 2025 when he's expected to be signed. We've talked about that also with Yiddy Capay. Is he going to stick at shortstop, or are they going to move him to a spot like third base? A lot of these guys most of the time move around, but to hear what you heard, that they really think that this guy could stick at shortstop, that is definitely a really, really good sign. And they're going to give him every opportunity to do so. So kind of like that quick twitch guy, more of a line drive swing than anything from what I've seen. If he can come by more power, great. He's got all the time in the world to do it. 6 foot 160, so already has a little bit of bulk to him as well. So it's not like he's this tiny little skinny guy. He's got some bulk to him there as well. So definitely more to grow into as well as he goes. Maybe the power can come with that. But I like what I hear so far. The switch hit ability, the quick twitch nature, the ability to stick at shortstop. This is exciting. And I think the Marlins got a really good deal on this guy. I like this player.
All right, so let's get into the pitching side of things here, Alex. We'll talk quickly about Jose Paulino, who seems to be the top pitcher signed, but we'll get into other names as we go. But what are your thoughts on him? Seems like I think he got the most amount by pitcher for a pitcher, and right there, thankfully, thanks to Craig Mish, we could see up there at the top the velocities. He's hitting 93, 94 on the fastball, around 80, I think mid 80s on the changeup, and then around high 70s on the curveball. And I think the slider's 73, 78. So just your quick thoughts. I mean, this is a guy who was supposed to go out, was supposed to get a lot more, but with how quickly Miami was able to get him, they were able to get him for what seems to be a steal.
Yeah, for sure. You really, really like what you see in the velos already, right? And then the velo mix, you know what I mean, with that really high arcing 12-6 on that curveball with those really good spin rates, as you can see here at the top of the screen. Even at, not even age 16 yet, he was already up to like 87, 88, which is pretty good. And now he's all the way up to 94. So I think this guy's come a long way in just under a year from going from 88, which is pretty damn good for not even 16-year-old, to now 93, 94 as a 17-year-old. So you can kind of see what he's doing here to build up the velo, to build up the stamina a little bit. And then he has that really good curveball. I really do like that pitch. And already with the beginnings of an 86 to 87 mile an hour changeup, usually the last pitch that a player develops. So to see him already have what looks to be the makings of a pretty good changeup already, man, you really like the 3-pitch mix already of this kid. Man, that curveball, ooh, keep seeing it. You throw it to both sides of the plate. That looks really good. I like that curveball. Ooh, that's nasty. I really like that curveball. That's sick. So again, it doesn't seem like a lot of effort either. He's kind of leaned back, kind of leans back into the delivery, and then kind of explodes forward a little bit. So a little bit of a change of pace in the speed of the delivery as well. It's kind of like that lean back, and then he's bam, and he's forward with the ball, right? But still not that much effort to it. So I really do like the look of this pitcher with a 3-pitch mix already, especially that curveball, and then up to 94 with the fastball. This looks good, man. We're gonna have to learn a little bit more about control and command, but these videos look pretty damn good. This guy can throw to both sides of the plate. He's got a good 3-pitch mix. I think the Marlins like this one as well, and I like this kid too. I'm excited to see what this guy's going to do in the DSL this year for sure.
And what I'm most excited about is just where do we rank these guys, because it kind of feels like now we're getting to that point where it was hard to rank because the system wasn't very good. We could say that at least in the last rankings we both did. Now we're going to go into kind of a fresh new slate here with new guys, and it kind of feels like this system's kind of getting built up little by little. I mean, you already have Kova, Salas is coming in next year. You have Meyer, Thomas White. Now you have Paulino, and we're going to talk about a couple other guys that, thankfully we were able to get a little bit of insight on. And the next one we're going to talk about is Garrington Mendez, undersized, but freaky slot, flexibility, mobility traits that are very strong. He has a plus fastball. He has the breaking balls are pretty good, gets a lot of swing and miss. The changeup is really what gets it going. So, and he's hitting right now 89. So this is one of the players that we were told we need to keep an eye out on, as well as Eric Gutierrez, who we hear is one of the dark horses, is what we'll say. Good. He's a left-handed pitcher with elite size, is what we know, and Miami loves size, and he's already up to 94 on the fastball. So a lot to take away there just from those two guys. It kind of feels like Miami really said, let's go up, and that goes back to what we said at the start of the show, Alex, where they're going after a lot of quality instead of quantity, and that's a good way to build a system, especially how it was just. I mean, we would have to look a couple months ago. I mean, and no knock on Troy Johnson, he's a great player, but he may have been one of the top players in the system, and he's almost 27.
Yeah, for sure. So you got to get younger, right? And this is a great way to do it through the national signing period, and to do it in a way that you only bring in 21 players versus 3 times that a couple years ago, like we were talking about, but you get what looks to be pretty high quality stuff, and again, it's very early. So maybe not every one of these players that we're talking about today is going to work out the way that we want. But from what we're seeing just in the initial looks and initial reports, we like what we see. And when the Marlins got those 60 players that they got a couple years ago, there were a couple guys that kind of stood out, but it wasn't like it was, wow, we can point to, 12 or 15 out of the 15 of 20 of them and point to something that is like a standout tool already. You can already see these standout tools coming with most of these 21 players that they signed in this period. So again, like you said, it's the quality over quantity, but I think the Marlins are going to be pretty happy because I really do like what we see from a lot of these guys already at such young ages. And again, it's going to take growth. It's going to take time. These guys that we're talking about, you guys aren't going to see them until 2028, 2029, maybe, unless somebody gets pushed pretty hard, but I doubt it. So yeah, you're talking about guys that are going to take a while, but when you're already pretty damn advanced, a lot of the ways that these guys are, when you're talking about guys that are already throwing 94, reaching 94, We talked about it already with a couple of guys. You talk about quick twitch. When you can mention that term already into a guy that's 16, 17 years old, it's exciting. So kind of the personality profile traits and the stuff that we've already seen and heard about these players, you hear a lot more great things already happening versus just, okay, we're going to throw a dart and see which one sticks. You know what I mean? Which, again, that wasn't a bad approach, and they did get good talent from that. But this is a much better approach when you're talking about a team that needs to recognize talent as soon as possible. We already talked about that. So I think that's kind of the switch in mindset for the Marlins here. And like you said, Jarrington Mendez, again, this guy's a little bit different than Arias. I think that's Arias. No, not Arias. Sorry, Castro. A little bit different than Castro in the fact that a lot lower arm slot from what we're seeing and hearing. I don't think he has quite the velocity that Castro has already, averaging about 89. But again, long ways to go. He could build it up. But what you do like about this guy is spin rates. This guy's got really damn good spin rates on his secondary pitches. And then he has that changeup too that flattens out. That looks really good as well. So yeah, this guy could be good. I think he needs to come by a little bit more velocity. That would be great to see. But as of right now, what you're hearing about him is that you told me is great flexibility, lower arm slot, averaging 89, maybe a little ways to go to pump it up a little bit. But again, he's 17 years old. And then really good spin rates as well on secondary stuff. So you like it. This is like a 3 to possibly 4 pitch mix from what we've seen in videos. So we like this guy too. I think a little bit of further ways to go than a guy like Castro, who I think is a little bit more advanced, but definitely has the potential to become a rotational starter, maybe mid to back end rotational starter at the very least, definitely relief stuff. So you like it, and you like the baseline profile that you see from a guy like that as well, even though he wasn't that high money guy.
Yeah. All right. Last two guys I do want to touch on are the catchers that they signed, because one thing we had heard right before we got full names was they're gonna focus on catching, and obviously this was when Lorenzo was still here, but they when you look back at this list, a lot of this was Adrian Lorenzo because he was there, and a lot of usually, I mean, we're gonna try to hammer this point. A lot of these guys but they agree to these deals way before their year comes along. And for example, Andrew Salas. So let's touch on the catchers real quick. They are Alman Tolentino, who we're pretty high on as well, and the Mexican kid Kevin Robeldo. So two good catchers. I mean, Robeldo's medium frame, athletic, loose type athlete. He is actually, funny enough, and we don't like to make comparisons when they're 16, 17 years old, but we're hearing Javi Baez comparisons already. And, I know right now Javi Baez is not the greatest baseball player, but you look at what he did with the Cubs, he was pretty damn good. And then with Tolentino, medium frame, both two very good arms. Defensively, he has to get some work in, but, we'll see if he sticks that catcher. But right now, it kind of seems like Kevin Robeldo is a big name to look at. But Tolentino, strong guy, good arm, both of them. Alex, what do you take away from the catching, which they desperately need in this organization?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely they do, especially after getting rid of Ronald and, all those other things that we've already talked about multiple times. I think where you're seeing the comparison between these two kids is that Robledo is a little bit more advanced behind the plate, and that Tolentino needs a little bit of work behind the plate. But you do like that Tolentino is a lefty as well. So, yeah, a left-handed hitting catcher, that's a great asset to have for any organization, especially a young kid. I think the defense could be developed for him. They like the arm strength, but I think he needs a little bit of work in other areas of the catching game, such as blocking, framing, stuff like that. Work in progress behind the plate, but you like a left-handed hitting catcher and you take that all day, especially at such a young age and already showing that he has pretty damn good athleticism. Robledo, this guy as well. They like the hands and levers that he exhibits on both sides of the ball, soft hands on both sides of the ball. Seems like he stays back pretty well. When it comes to the Marlins and catchers, what you really think about is, and yes, I know traditional baseball, especially Major League Baseball, this isn't really a thing today anymore to have a highly prized offensive catcher, but that's what you're hoping can be developed here. So if either one of these guys can develop and stick behind the plate, I think Robledo has a little bit of a better chance. That's what you're kind of looking at. But you do like the left-handed hitting ability of Tolentino. I would probably be slightly higher on Robledo overall, just from what we know so far. But, man, you got a lefty, you got a righty. See which one works out. I think they're on different ends of where they need to go with their development. I think that Robledo needs to develop a little bit more offensively. Tolentino maybe needs a little bit more work defensively. So yeah, it's gonna just take time to see which one works out. Can Tolentino stick at catcher? Can Robledo develop the bat a little bit more in terms of bat speed and contact? Those are kind of the two things that I would look at in the videos of him. It's the contact profile. But man, you like both of these kids, like you said, Kevin, and the organization definitely needs guys like this. So we'll see which one works out. If not both, if both, that's great. But yeah, seeing guys like this come into the organization at a pretty damn young age, already having tools that are still being worked on, but that are already pretty strong. I think that is definitely a credit to them. So we'll see which one works out. Again, slightly higher on Robledo, but we'll see which one works out.
Alrighty, so that'll do it for the international side of things. We'll quickly touch on some final hits that we think are worth noting. So the Pensacola Blue Wahoo, the Double-A affiliate of the Marlins, had their Fish Fest on Friday. I want to say Friday. Yeah, either Thursday or Friday. But anyways, Thursday they had it. So they should be dropping tomorrow, which today's Saturday. So funny enough, today marks the 1 year since the Marlins dealt for Arias. So. And funny enough, Jose Salas was in that deal. So, funny coincidence that we get Andrew Salas on the day that Jose Salas was traded. But anyways, we continue. We spoke to Jordan McCants, who is going to probably start at low A, but he is from Pensacola. So cool to see him out there for this type of event. Ike Buxton, who's expected to start at Double-A, and Jacob Berry, who's also expected to start at Double-A. So all three phenomenal guys. We spoke to them. Great answers. Alex, you wrote the article on McCants. I wrote the one on Buxton. Just talk to us a little bit about Jordan McCants. This is a guy who, when we get into make or break years, I feel like he's in one of those. And I know it's still early with him, but man, you're repeating the level now, and you really got to get it going.
If he goes up to single A advanced, he won't repeat the level, which I think he will. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he needs to show, like I wrote in the article, he needs to show a little bit more with bat speed and contact overall. What I did like about Jordan is how level-headed this player is. Just mentioning to us, and which is kind of what prompted me to write the article, just all of these lessons that he learned and all of these takeaways that he has from 2023. And then, of course, his personality profile of not forgetting where he comes from, right? Going back into the community, going back to Pensacola every year, even though he's not on that team, right? To do Fish Fest all 3 years, right, with them. So this guy definitely has really strong mental fortitude. I think he learned it even more this past year going through what he did. With the Hammerheads not having a stadium, and then they're playing in two different places, and some ways they didn't even have a real locker room, and they didn't even have resources that they needed at Palm Beaches because they're just not there, right? So I think that definitely hindered him, but did also teach him that kind of mental side of baseball of like, hey, you're going to fail and you need to know how to get over it, right? Which is kind of what he said exactly himself. So I really like the strong mindset that Jordan McCants really does exhibit. Yes, he needs to do work. Yes, he needs to get a little bit better with some of his tools, including bat speed. I think that's his main one. It's definitely not going to be a guy who hits a ton of home runs or anything like that, but it is a guy who needs to be able to just put the bat on the ball and let his speed go to work for him. He stole 36 bases last year, even though he had, a pretty middling on base percentage. So, I mean, still, this guy gets on base, he's going to be dangerous. So all he needs to focus on is fully knowing his tools, developing the bat speed definitely a little bit more, selectiveness at the plate a little bit more. But again, he's still just 21 years old. I still think there's time. I don't necessarily think that 2024 is a make or break season for him. Maybe 2025 because he's still 21 years old. So again, I really hope that he can develop the bat speed overall, develop his selectiveness a little bit better. It's going to probably come as he takes a step up to single A advanced. I do project him to start at single A advanced. So yeah, it's going to come as he faces, it's going to have to come as he faces off against more developed and more higher advanced pitching and competition. But I definitely think with the mindset that this guy has, the work ethic that he has, that it's definitely possible for him to turn it around from what we saw over the course of the full year last year. I mean, it's just knowing the tools and developing in those certain areas that we need to see to fully get him to what his potential could possibly be in the near future. So that's what I would say for McCants. I really like that kid. Says all the right things, and the mental side of baseball, he gets it. So you like to see that from a player. Does he have to get over some struggles last year? Absolutely, you're right. But I think that he can do it, and I'm excited to see what he can do in terms of where he was this past year on the course of the full season, in terms of where he's going to come in and be this year in 2024. I think you could see a much different player, honestly.
Yeah, and one thing he did note that it was he did have a pretty good spring training. We were there, we saw it, we'll watch it again, and he noted it too. I mean, he said I felt like I had a pretty good spring training, but I kind of went away from that approach during the year. And he said in baseball, it's hard to get things back. And he certainly couldn't get the approach back. One thing he's definitely struggled with is pretty high strikeout percentages this season, specifically in 2023, highest in his career. I mean, he hovered around 25% in 21 and 22, but he went up to 27% in 2023. Really just and he did put the ball in play a decent amount, but just didn't walk a lot. Not, it's certainly tough for someone like him. And one thing you did note, and actually, I'm glad you did, because I actually was not totally aware, but he was playing a lot of third base. He played almost the entire season there. Certainly helps him a lot with defensive versatility. I know we've seen him at short second. Now we get to see him at third. So maybe you're right. Maybe he does end up at high A. I find it hard that they'll promote someone, because we kind of look at what happened with Yeedy. He struggled at the low A level towards the very end of the season, goes up to Beloit, which was a pretty aggressive push, but a good one that we both agreed with, and he struggled. But he gets another shot at it. I don't think he's make or break either, but you kind of look at it, it's like, man, maybe McCants, you give him a couple weeks at least until it's not very cold in Beloit anymore. Because, that's the one thing, too. When you go up to Beloit, it's a struggle at the start of the season. We saw it with Victor Mesa Jr. He struggled there. It was extremely cold up there. And maybe those are some conditions you'd want him to put him there. But we'll see. He has time. He'll have now full spring training again to go through. So I'm pretty high on someone like McCants.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think, like you said, there was just so many variables in place for everybody, all of the younger guys on Jupiter, with the things that they went through this year, and then still were able to get a title out of it, which was impressive. Those are hard to hit in climates already. And then you go to a new park without the resources that you're used to at the park that you already have. That's difficult, right? And that goes into it. I'm not making excuses, but that goes into it. And then, like you said, he was kind of learning a new position. He didn't play third base at all in his pro career until this year. And then you're playing 55 games there, right? So he dealt with it. He said it was a little bit of a stark learning curve at first, but that he was able to kind of do it, and at least be pretty solid over there. I don't think he was bad over there. I think he was pretty solid over there. So yeah, I mean, overall, I just think that there was a lot of pressure on him this past year. I think there was a lot of variables in place that led to the struggles that he did have. Yes, there's some gaps that he needs to fix for it, but I think with more consistency and with just a more consistent environment, he was with Jupiter all year last year, but look at how many other variables were in place, even though he was with the same team. There's a lot to deal with. So I think it was a high stress year for Jordan. And I think that if he can kind of get back to where he was, not putting too much pressure on himself, if the Marlins don't put as much pressure on him either, I think there was definitely a lot of pressure that he dealt with. So over the course of his second full season, more comfortability, and just with the mindset that he exhibits, I think that this is a true bounce back candidate. I really do think that you could see a different player in McCants this year, judging off of all of the things that we just talked about. So I really like McCants. I'm still fairly high on him. And I'm confident that he'll be able to turn it around.
That makes two of us, man. I mean, I am also pretty high on McCants. He was a third-round pick just in 2021, so he still has time. He's only 21, as you mentioned. I don't know if he'll be 22 when the season begins. No, he will not. So he still has a lot of time to go. So let's talk a little bit about Ike Buxton. This is a guy who really stood out this season for us. He went across 3 levels, started at low A. He really made a good impression there. That's where he got most of his success. Goes to high A. He's pitches well. Then he only has 1 start at Double-A Pensacola, but that was a very good start for Ike Buxton. He goes to the AFL. He struggles a little bit. It's about, I think it was a 6.611 ERA, but still, you get the experience. You get to face different types of talents and different levels for him. A lot of AAA talent for the most part. So he is someone who definitely stood out. He spoke to us, very well-spoken guy. Very excited to see what he comes up with in 2024. I'm sorry. He was a 2023 draft pick, didn't have a spring training. So now he has the opportunity to go in there, make something happen there. Pretty good fastball, a lot of good breaking ball stuff, breaking pitches, secondary stuff, really good. Gets a lot of swing and miss. Alex, I mean, what stands about Ike Buxton? What you take away from our media session with him, and how excited are you? I mean, this is a guy who's probably going to be a pretty, not, I wouldn't say very high player on our list, but he'll probably be towards the middle for sure.
Yeah, just kind of unheralded, right? Like you said, 2022 draft pick out of a very, very cold weather climate, right? And as a pitcher, like as any baseball player, it's kind of hard to make it from those smaller markets to being drafted. I mean, anywhere at all, let alone the 15th round. And yeah, that sounds like kind of a lower pick, but man, for a guy from that kind of climate and those kind of areas to those kind of like lesser heralded baseball areas to kind of make it the way that he did. That is great. So I really like this guy kind of as that underdog story. He won't blow you away with velocity. He probably sits at like 89, probably maybe up to 92 on his best day with velocity. But like you said, the breaking pitches are really good. And then like we asked him in the presser that you put in your article, just the way that they pushed him last year, knowing that this is an older guy, you can't stay in Jupiter all year. You're going to have to get pushed, right? So pitching across 3 different levels, and then also going up to what's it called? Or going down to Arizona. It's really, really an interesting story of a very interesting kid. So I really do think that this guy could be pushed even harder this year, maybe up to even Triple-A. You're going to have to do something eventually, right? You're going to have to show something eventually to show that, hey, I'm an older guy, but I'm ready to contribute now. So yeah, I think this guy could even get pushed even harder. It's just a fun story of like how he started out as an outfielder, then learned how to pitch. We didn't even get into that with him, but he was an outfielder in college. He pitched kind of a little bit, but he was an outfielder and then became a pitcher. So it's a fun story of a really, really fun player. I really like Ike. He's a really fun guy, very nice guy to talk to, and just has that really fun baseball background from where he comes from. Again, unheralded area, was an outfielder, turned into a pitcher, and he's making it work. Like kind of like that Sean Reynolds thing, yeah. Right? Just kind of that story of sticking with it and finding what works. And I think Ike did it as a pitcher, and he's doing it. Again, it's lower velo, but those breaking pitches are damn good, man. And he had a really good 77 inning tenure. My looks or my things that I'm looking for out of him this coming year is just going to be how it happens at the upper levels of the minors. He did it with Jupiter. He did it with Beloit. Started to do it with Pensacola. Is that going to happen against these upper level guys? I think he can. I think he definitely can. Maybe turn into that back end starter or multiple inning reliever for sure. Definitely has the background to do it. Wide arsenal of pitches, like 4 pitches at least. So I do like Ike for sure. It's a fun story. It's a really fun background. If you just look into like his baseball reference page or history at college or whatever it may be, and look at where this guy has gone from being a position player to being a pitcher and then making it work as a pitcher fairly quickly, I think that shows a really strong mindset, really strong background. So I like Buxton, and it was cool to get to talk to him. And you put out a great article on him, by the way, Kevin. It was awesome. So go check that out on Fish on First if you guys have not seen it yet. But yeah, again, I think this is a guy who could contribute to the Marlins as early as this year if the Marlins continue to push him the way that they have.
Yeah, check out Alex's article too on Jordan McCants. I mean, we're pumping out content on that end on the prospect side of things. But anyways, we'll touch on the last player, and I think we'll wrap up there. I know we were going to do make or break candidates, but we're going over we're about to hit the hour in just a bit. So Jacob Berry, this is a guy who was certainly an interesting prospect to kind of talk about here because there was some good for sure. We can't say there wasn't. And then there was the bad. And I think we're going to touch on bad first. Obviously, defense is the first thing. I mean, at this point, I really don't know what's holding the Marlins back from putting Berry at first base. We saw him do it with Pensacola. I don't know how much he did it with Beloit, but that's what kind of when we saw the first move, we saw like a shift in first basemen in the organization, kind of that middle of the year with Berry. Every guy moved up a level. We saw Torrin go from low A to high A. We saw Berry go from high A to Double-A. I think that's when, I think Troy started at Double-A too this year, and he goes from Double-A to Triple-A. So let's talk a little bit there. Berry had a very up and down season, but really where he kind of stood out was with the Wahoos, hitting 248, 301, 442, 743 with 5 home runs and 22 RBIs. He doesn't strike out too much, just hovering that 21% rate, but he's not walking a lot and he's not putting the ball in play very much either. That's what stood out in terms of his Double-A experience. At Triple-A, he certainly struggled a lot more, even lower on base, lower WRC plus, just I start to think, Alex, how much do you think the third base is really affecting someone like this? Because in college, this guy was raking, and I don't know if he was a DH in college or how much he spent time at third base, but we knew from the get-go this guy would not stick at third. He's a pretty bulky guy for the most part. He's more of a power on the power side of things. So what stands out to you about Jacob Berry? What did you take away from what he said? He kind of told us he's not going to change. He's not going to stick to one side of the plate. I kind of tried to ask him in a way. I don't know if you noticed. Oh, no, you weren't there. But you did listen to it, though, I would assume. So I kind of tried to ask him, like, do you want to continue hitting on both sides of the plate? Because maybe sticking to one side helps someone like Barry, who's struggled offensively up to this point. But he'll most likely get the NRI. He'll get the non-roster invite to spring training. I would assume Buxton maybe as well. He has a good chance, but this would be his first full spring training, so I don't know how the team would feel about that. But Barry, for sure, he got it last season. Where do you stand right now with Jacob Barry? He's definitely one of the top prospects in the organization. He was very good, actually, in the AFL. He was pretty good. He made a couple errors, though, at third. I don't think he played any first base, but still, a lot to take away from the Marlins 2023 first-round pick. 2022.
Yeah, it's just a lot of bad swings, man. Honestly, it's a lot of getting, from what I saw of him last year, it's a lot of getting behind in the count very early, and then you're at the pitcher's mercy, right? So this guy needs to do a lot better early in counts. That is what is hurting him the most, I think. And then I think he struggles with bat speed. I really don't think he has good bat speed at all. I think he's just kind of more of a run into it kind of guy right now with bat speed. I think that needs to be developed a lot better as well, if it can be. If not, he just needs to turn into that base hit guy, which is okay, but it's not really in his profile. Like you said, he does at his best have decent power, and you kind of want to make that permeate as well. But when you're coming by that just based off of, getting a good pitch, and you can't get good pitches because you're falling behind in the count so early as you are, unless the pitcher makes a clear-cut mistake, it's kind of hard to live off of running into things. And I think that's where Barry's projection is right now offensively, is that he's having to run into things versus having an advantage and then being able to exploit the opposing pitcher. That is a true issue. So how that can be fixed is he needs to do a lot better early in counts, much better early in counts. If you look at the metrics early in counts, it'll back it up. He really struggled early in counts, both with Beloit and with Pensacola. So that's where he needs to really improve. He was able to kind of, limit the overall strikeout percentage. I mean, it's only 21%. So it wasn't that bad, but when you're only walking at a 4% rate, in single A advance, that's as old as you are, you got to be better at working counts, especially early. But even as you get later into the count, you're older than your average competition at single A advanced. You really do need to. That's definitely the aspect of his game he needs to work on, is his disciplined approach, and then, like I said, the bat speed. So I really hope he can turn it around. My confidence level in him turning it around is low, honestly. I think, like you said, though, the Marlins can take a lot of pressure off of Jacob Barry by putting him at first base. That's it. Just put him at first base. He's only playing first base. That's it.
And he would very likely be the best first baseman, best power.
They need help there anyway, right? Yeah,
they need
first
right
base.
now.
So why wouldn't they do it? It takes pressure off. You need help there. Put him at first base. It's not that hard. I don't understand. They started to do it, and yes, it would be a new position for him. He didn't play it in college, right? So it was a new position. He started to learn it last year. We saw him walking around even in spring training with the first base glove a little bit. So he was starting to learn on the backfield. They put him there with Beloit. So, and I think with Pensacola too. But then you go to Arizona and he's only at third base. They put all 16 games at third base. So why are they clinging on to, and this would be a really good question, by the way, for anybody with player dev, like, why are you still clinging on to him at third base? Maybe they still think he can do it. That's fine. But you would take a lot of pressure off of the bat and let him try to focus on things that he's doing with the bat more consistently if you took that pressure off of also developing his throwing arm, which is not good whatsoever. So that throwing arm is going to take years to develop. I really don't see it happening. But you want to develop the offense. And he does have the ability and chance to develop offense. I think it's going to come at the cost of taking pressure off of the bat. But it's really not a cost because, like you just said, the Marlins need help at first base. He needs to be a first baseman. That's it.
And it's a quicker way for him to get up to the big leagues too, Alex, because think about it. I mean, we love Troy. We think Troy's great, but he's up there in age. And at the moment, this organization has shown zero intention of having this guy be a big leaguer as much as they do need, because they do need a left-handed hitter in that lineup or even on the bench. Troy could do it. And, we know the defense is a struggle for him. He could tell you that, but he showed some improvements for the most part. But again, Barry would very likely be a big leaguer, especially if he gets it going with the bat. If he gets it going with the bat, Jacob Barry could be a big leaguer very soon for this team. He would have that AAA for half the season. Maybe he gets a couple weeks there in 2025 and he's up in the big leagues, especially if he gets it going with the bat and how hitter-friendly that AAA ballpark is, which, funny enough, is our background today for any of you watching it on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, third base, man, you have enough of those in the organization, especially if McCann sticks there. Maybe you put Yeedy there at third. We'll see what happens on that end. But you have options. You have a lot of infield prospects in this organization. Just put Jacob Barry at first. If you want, at least primarily as a first baseman. And he's a switch hitter. So kind of like that. I wouldn't even say Josh Bell profile, but eventually that would be a pretty good profile to have. I think he would even have more speed.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely think this guy should be a first baseman. The power would fit well there as well. Like we said, the power profile. Yeah, he really does need to, I think, be a first baseman. And this year is big for him. He's Rule 5 eligible in 2025. So after 2025, so this is the second to last year before eligibility there. It's $6 million buy-in on this player. So you want to see it this year. This is a big year for Jacob Berry. I think this is you talk about make or break players, man. I think this could be one, honestly.
Yep.
I know the Marlins have only had him for a little while. After the 2022 draft, he's only been here 2 seasons.
Yep.
But man, he needs to show a lot more. And if he doesn't show drastic improvement, I would say, with the bat, not that he can't bring it back and do it in 2025. Maybe he can, and that would be great. He's still 22. Fine. He's going to be 23, but you know what I mean? But going on to your age 23 season, and still with a lot to prove on both sides of the ball, I think that this guy could be nearing or at what should look like a make or break season. I would say Barry is close to that.
Yep, and I think we'll wrap it up here. We were going to do the make or breaks, but we're about to hit the hour mark in any minute here. So, Alex, as always, it's always fun hopping on here. We got to do this a lot more often. We will, because spring training, that's coming up very soon for the Marlins. They will report, I believe, on the 15th, and at least that is pitchers and catchers. Minor leagues shouldn't take too long after that. Those guys should be there. We'll be at FanFest. I don't know when this is dropping. Should either be Sunday or Monday, but if it is FanFest week, no matter what, Friday from 4 to 10. Make sure you guys all go out there, check it out. I will. Alex will be there. I'll be there. I think Isaac will be there. I think almost everyone from Fish on First is going to be there. So make sure to go out there, support the Marlins. They always do very well with that event. I think almost everyone's. What we haven't understood is almost every 40-man guy is going to be there. So you'll have your prospects if you're a prospect lover there, and when you know it, the breakout game is coming up soon in March. So we have a lot to look forward to, Alex. A lot of backfield content. That's some of the best content you could get from these guys. I would assume these international signings, most of them at least, will be there, unless if they don't have any visa issues. So you'll get your first looks at someone like Luis Cova possibly, and these pitchers. So yeah, Alex, anything else on your end before we wrap it up? And yeah, as always, fishonfirst.com. Make sure to check it out. Show us love. You can make your account for free, and that way you could write whatever you want about the Marlins, as long as it isn't defined constraints of good, or you could write it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, nothing else on my end, Kev. It's always a pleasure coming on with you. So thanks for putting it together today. It was awesome. Your knowledge and expertise of this stuff always impresses me, man. You've grown. We talk about players growing in a short time. I think you've grown into your role and being able to knowledgeably talk about this stuff in a very short period of time. So the research that you do and the work that you put in is great. So I appreciate you for everything that you've done for Fish on the Farm, Swimming Upstream, as did on this show again. Great stuff. Yeah, guys, like Kevin said, go make your accounts on the new fishonfirst.com. Great looking site. There's so much power that we can use that we didn't have before with Fish on First, or that I didn't even have when I was at Fish on the Farm. My own website. This website has so much power, so many tools that we can use. So get in on the ground floor, make your account. If you want to super subscribe, please do that as well. It supports us. Check out the new site. It's great. But for now, I think that's it. Me and Kev, like Kev said, we'll have a lot more content related to minor leaguers coming up very, very soon. Exciting day for the Marlins. Be excited about Salas. Be excited about these international guys, and we'll see what they're going to do.
Yep. So as always, from Alex, myself, we'll see you guys soon. And as always, go